In a small, snowbound village in Russia, not long before the Bolshevik Revolution, there lived a priest named Father Andrei. Known for his warmth and kindness, Father Andrei had one weakness: a fierce struggle with alcohol. He tried to overcome it, but time and again he succumbed to the bottle. This weakness was a constant source of guilt for him, as his addiction sometimes led him to show up to church services in a state unworthy of his calling. People whispered, exchanged looks, and shook their heads. Finally, the villagers felt they had to act. They sent a delegation to the bishop, imploring him to do something. The bishop, a man of stern resolve, listened to their pleas. He summoned Father Andrei, hoping a reprimand would set him on the right path. Yet, despite the bishop's efforts, Father Andrei remained unable to shake his addiction. "Father," he began sternly, "you are a man of God, and yet here you are, tarnishing the sacredness of the priesthood with your drunkenness. It cannot go on." Father Andrei lowered his head, feeling the full weight of his shame. He wanted to stop, to overcome this weakness, but he had failed every time. He had no words to defend himself. Finally, with a heavy heart, the bishop said, "If you cannot give up drinking, then I must ask you to give up your position as a priest. From this moment, you are no longer authorized to administer the sacraments." Father Andrei felt as if the floor had dropped from beneath him. His heart pounded with both sorrow and a strange sense of relief. Perhaps this was the penance he deserved. Bowing his head, he whispered, "I understand, Your Eminence. I have failed in my duty." With that, he turned and left the bishop's office, burdened by both his failure and his resolve to make amends in whatever way he could. That night, after dismissing Father Andrei, the bishop returned to his room, hoping for peace. But during his evening prayers, he was suddenly overcome by an intense vision. He found himself standing in an open field under a darkened sky, surrounded by an angry, desperate crowd. Thousands of people, their faces pale with anguish, raised their hands toward him, pleading and crying out, "Bring him back! Bring him back!" The cries grew louder, their voices filled with a mixture of hope and despair. Shaken, the bishop opened his eyes, wondering if this was just a fantasy brought on by the strain of the day. But as he tried to continue his prayer, the vision returned with greater intensity, the faces sharper, the cries louder. He felt an unearthly pressure, as if the souls of the departed were reaching out to him from beyond. The next morning, troubled and anxious, the bishop summoned Father Andrei to his office. When Father Andrei arrived, the bishop looked at him with a mixture of wonder and uncertainty. "Father Andrei," he said, "tell me, what did you do each day as a priest?" Father Andrei looked puzzled. "I served the church as best I could, Your Eminence," he replied softly. "But I know I failed. Please," the bishop urged, "tell me specifically what you did each day." Father Andrei looked down, speaking slowly, as though each word carried a heavy weight. "Because of my weakness, I felt unworthy to serve the living, to offer advice or guidance when I struggled myself. But I felt that I could still help in one small way. So every day I went to the cemetery at dusk. I held quiet memorial services and prayed for the souls of the departed, especially those whose graves were forgotten, whose families no longer came to honor them. I thought that even if I could do nothing for myself, perhaps I could bring peace to them." The bishop was silent, realization dawning in his heart. He now understood the vision. Those thousands of faces he had seen were the souls of the departed, whom Father Andrei had prayed for each day. They had no one else to remember them, no one else to speak a kind word over their graves. In his silent acts of devotion, Father Andrei had become their only comfort, their only light. With renewed understanding, the bishop looked at Father Andrei with compassion and respect. "Father Andrei," he said, his voice filled with new resolve, "I see now that your work was far greater than I understood. I hereby reinstate you as a priest. Return to your duties and continue to pray for those departed souls who have no one else." Father Andrei's eyes filled with tears, a wave of relief washing over him. Bowing low, he whispered, "Thank you, Your Eminence. I will do my best." From that day on, Father Andrei continued his quiet work at the cemetery, a humble man seeking redemption, not only for himself, but for the forgotten souls who needed him. He remained faithful to his task, his prayers becoming a bridge of peace between the living and the departed. This story teaches us that forgiveness often defies the boundaries of our human judgment. Even in our weakness, our small acts of kindness and devotion may carry a meaning we cannot see. Sometimes the good we do in silence outweighs the flaws others see in us. This story reminds us that divine judgment may not align with human concepts of justice. Though Father André struggled with a personal vice, his prayers were a balm for countless souls, and in the end, it was the good of his actions that outweighed his weakness. If this story touched you, remember to like, subscribe,